Hi. I kind of discovered I'm a little bit of ghost here, that no one knows I'm here, besides my colleague from Olamote. So a little bit introduction and context of what I'm going to talk about. I'm Bara from Olamote. I'm currently a PhD student in the program of Digital Humanities and Linguistic. But I'm barely a linguist. I'm definitely not semiotician or biosemiotician. I lean more towards the digital humanities. And in the way we do it in other modes, meaning that I usually cry a lot over coding in Python and study the history of technology. And since I study the history of technology, I'm kind of half-baked historian. I did it during my undergrad as a double major. So my focus is basically the history of technology, very specific technology we're going to talk about, and how it's silver line through the time to the current times. Now, I know that the first slide looks wild. And if you read the abstract, it's a little bit wild too. And the name is kind of like something who's stepping into semiotics would do as a first step, trying to find their footing in the science, in the metaphors, in the lingo, and everything. But I'm going to talk about something slightly different. The point of view that's, at least according to me, is not acknowledged very much when you talk about metaphors in biosemiotics and biology. And I know that the picture looks wild too. It's actually a joke from a show called Philomena Kang, and I'm not sure on which, but this was on Darwin and Babbage. And it's supposed to be joke. It's not meant seriously, but it's here to illustrate the overall theme of this presentation, that how the biology is perceived by common people, and there are some mistakes and why it's kind of our fault as a as a scientific and philosopher community, right? So the Darwinism is a big topic, and we will walk through it. Now the outline will probably tell you nothing because it's mostly for me, but it will make sense in the end. Okay, I won't take much of your time. There's only 6 next slides, so it will be a little bit quicker. But why biosemiotics? We answer this question in this slide in a little bit. But fundamental origin of our problem. Our problem is slightly the mechanistic thinking about biology. And usually if someone already heard me talk somewhere, you know that I'm kind of fond of mechanistic approach, but I won't do this here, okay? Mutual inspiration is about how computation inspired biology and biology inspired computation. It will make sense, don't worry. Can a biologist fix a radio? If this sounds familiar to you, it's really nice paper by Yuri Lazebny for 2002 talking about certain problem. And in the end, I'm not sure if you're familiar with term ivory tower, but I think this is the overall problem we have as the Society of Scientists and someone who's talking about biology. Now, for the illustration there, it's in Czech, so only few of you understand. There's a Sen noci svatojanské. It's a play on Shakespeare, Midsummer Night Dream. It's a Darwinian Night Dream. And it's a short book by Czech biologist talking about Darwin and his journey. And in the first few pages, he got drunk. Very, very drunk. So drunk that he hallucinated Darwin. And he was talking to Darwin about something really important. How life sciences, as physics and mathematics, are taken seriously by people. And we could argue that even now it's like the queens of the science, mostly because something like the Big Bang theory and other series. But biology, everyone thinks of biology and approaching especially evolution in Darwinian sense. We're not going to talk about different types of evolution. It's easy. Everyone knows the surviving of the fittest, right? Completely taken out of the context, but it's everyone. So he argues with Darwin that everyone thinks that biology is easy to understand and the evolution is easy to understand. And that's kind of why the point where I think that biosemiotics should step in. Because it was said many times that biosemiotics has a capability and ability to build bridges between not only different branches of semiotics, how we talked yesterday about the marketing, but also between humanities and life sciences. That's already happening. But also that's what's probably most important, at least now, is between us as a scientific community and between common people that are talking, that are living in our space, right? And biosemiotics is already doing something interesting because we are using so many metaphors in our lives. And common people are using metaphors they don't understand. And they have certain imagination, like if you say code, they're going to see something like the Human Genome Project I'm going to talk about, and they're going to see like blueprint of life. But biosemiotics already has some replacing terms for it, taking habits and other things. And it's already doing this job. It just needs to step outside and talk to people. Now, for the mathematical origin of our problem, these three are the most important men in my life for the last decade. I'm kind of biased, but I've been working with their works since I was undergrad. The first one is Kurt Gödel. And I would argue that with him starts something called code revolution, because with him starts something computational, we would call computational codes. Gödel was known for many things, having pink flamingo in his garden, being best friend of Albert Einstein, and writing books about time traveling that are really good, but also about the Gödel theorem. And in the first Gödel theorem, you have something called Gödel numbering. And with that, you can take something like Principia Mathematica, sentence like 1 plus 1 is plus 1 is 2, and decode it into long descriptive number. And you can do it in the whole formal system. But what's more important, you can do basic arithmetic functions with the long self-descriptive codes of the formal system. So you are basically doing computation. We are waiting for computing machines for the second guy, Alan Turing. You know him probably the best. There is a movie about him. He's talked about almost every time. And he kind of opened the door to the IT and the new technologies. I'm going to use umbrella term artificial intelligence and artificial life. But not only that, he was one of the first who connected biology with computation almost immediately. He was fascinated by life. We're going to talk about it. And later in the 50s, he published some papers, or an interesting one, that connecting biology to computation. And I would think that we like to point fingers at Jacobson and his the DNA's language and Gamow and others. But Turing and the last one, John von Neumann, are probably here to blame too. John von Neumann is known for many things, check traits of all, master of all, I would say. But what I'm working with is self-replication machine. He again did something what Gödel and Turing did. They encode the whole system. But with Turing, it was only to pass it through algorithm if there is something as a basic algorithm for anything. With von Neumann, it was more about portraying the evolution itself. It was the first basic algorithm for evolution. He encoded the hardware and the software inside the instruction inside the machine, and when the machine built next machine, it copied the whole information about hardware and software and passed it on. You probably know this, but also he really connected biology to computing and to mathematics. Now the fascination by life, this is all by Turing. For Turing, it was since childhood. He was inspired by Darcy Thompson, and let's say that Darcy Thompson was had mechanistic approach, which world that human body is machine, and Turing kind of took it. But when it comes to this, the first computing machine learning intelligence is probably the most famous paper. You know, the Imitation Game. It comes from this. But if you read beside it, there is few objections. One of them is theological objection. The theological objection talking about creating a life. But since Turing was atheist, but there was a still question. We are not creating a life according to God's will. We are just messing around, definitely. And in the 52, he published something more disconnected, even biology deeper to computation, the chemical basis of morphogenesis. This is basically chemical embryology, now studied as the longer term. And it's still studied. They're still doing many laboratories are still working on it and are still coming with other and other things. Mostly because lately was discovered the draft of the other paper, the morphogen theory of phyllotaxis. Turing was a mathematician. He always wrote the first, I'm a mathematician, but I'm trying to do biochemistry. He published this 1 year before, uh, sorry, before the DNA, and he worked on it for the rest of his life. Even earlier, he came up with something what we now call genetic algorithm. The term genetic algorithm came in the 70s. But Turing already used something similar in 48 in genetic or evolutionary search. He wasn't, again, applying mathematics and computing to something biological. At the time, they were inspired by evolution, and they wanted to portray it in the same way. Here you can see that Turing, even though that he was one of the most introverted scientists, he was still in touch with young, there was biologists writing about the brain. Now, if you want to blame Turing and Feynman for something, it's definitely for the metaphor of brain and computer. They never said it, but because of their work, the metaphor that the brain is computer and computer is the brain is very clearly due to them. This all is by von Neumann. And in the first, you can see from 46, this is letter to John von Neumann, when they talk about doing models of sarcophage, bacteriophage and virus and small organisms, but also try to rigorously prove mechanisms of evolution. And in this letter, also von Neumann started to sketch his final theory of self-propagating and evolution, starting with simply that A is A, later coming with the whole system. And they were talking about it with Norbert Wiener. Again, von Neumann was in connection not only with Wiener and the whole cybernetic circle, but with other people in Princeton. So they were talking about it very much with everyone, even with the students, even thought that von Neumann was never officially teaching. The second one is from the symposium, from Hickson Symposium, when he presented the paper that later became Self-Reproduction Automata, the book, his last. And you can notice that he's aware that the machines are not organisms, but we can use them as a metaphors. And again, in this paper, he was connected with Ulam for cellular automata, with McCulloch, Pitts for a neural network. So they work together. At the time, it was very popular. And the metaphor of code and computation is seeking deeper and deeper inside of biology. It's really important that they talk about it outside because they got really good PR for it. Turing had three lectures on BBC and one interview. It was already in the 50s talking about what we could call AI and taking jobs or what it does to people. Von Neumann was publishing essays about many things. One of them is, can we survive the technology? When he's like, yeah, we can with the day-to-day wisdom, but there are so many other things. It's out in public. It's the mechanical approach to science and to life is taking its place because they are talking about it. And it has a legacy. First, the Baricelli has the first evolution simulator, and he published about it. And it's slowly overtaking the whole paradigm about biology. Because in the 50s and 60s, we are excited about computing machines because the computers are suddenly donated again by state, by private companies. So the computers are evolving and better, and we need to collect data for our research. So everyone is excited. So most of the biological problems were established to be solved by computational power. And it opened doors to many new disciplines like bioinformatics, computer biology, and many others. Now, we need to realize there are two existence of code as a word. It's reality in coding, meaning Python and meaning all this as a discipline. And then you have the metaphor of code as science, and that becomes a human genome project. This is really like hard place for certain people because you know what it's about. It started in the 90s. In 2003, it was called finished, but I think that the last chromosome was added in 2022. But it gives us the image that we can read human by simply reading its code. That is basically blueprint for life. And this is getting outside. This is getting to people that are talking about it. The president of the United States, everyone is talking about it. So people have certain idea about how biology works. And that's the problem. Because at the same time, in the early 2000s, we have this complication. We have the turn against mechanical approach, which is completely legit, and we need it. Later, also published books like Beyond Mechanism, Putting Life Back into Biology in 2013, and others. But it's silent. It's really, really silent. It's happening inside the scientific community like biosemiotics and semiotics. Outside, what's happening is the new mechanistic approach. They took something from the card, but they make it softer. And they made it to fit neurosciences, psychology, some disciplines of biology. So they make it fit, and they are louder about it than any other turn. And can we fix a radio? This paper was published in 2002. I usually work with the reference. It's a really fun paper. It's talking about Yuval first year as a scientist, and he's basically criticizing biologists for not using the same lingo as engineers. So they are confused and they are using words like cells is communicating with other cells. So they are humanizing the life, right? And these 2 points, the last 2 points, are louder in the society, in the community, and people have certain ideas about it. And with the Human Genome Project and others, there's something happening. But it wasn't enough because we got in our personal ivory tower with this. We stopped communicating with the public what's happening on the humanities side of biology, because biology is science is standing between life sciences and humanities, depends on which field and discipline. And this was published to 2023, something or so. I think this is the second edition. It's by Philip Ball. Philip Ball is a journalist, scientific journalist, but he's a journalist. And we need more people like him because he's writing about how life works. And that's not the only thing. The other thing there is user's guide to the new biology. Something is happening, something shifted outside too, that people are suddenly hungry for something more, just a blueprint of life. That's just ours saying, scientists saying that we read the DNA and we know about human everything. But there is a new biology. For Philip Ball, the new biology is basically what we do in biosemiotics, that we don't need words like code, blueprint, that we have to put aside the mechanistic language and talk about life like about life. That's the new biology. So the question is, sorry, is it actually new biology? It's not. It's something that's happening for past 20 years. We just forget to communicate it with the people. And that's the role, at least for me, as the space that biosemiotics could fill. We could build a bridge and communicate with people. It's really important, not only for a scientific community to have its credibility, and it was destroyed by many things like Latour and others, but also so people know what's going on. Because we are in the ivory tower, completely in the ivory tower, and the people are under us, and the biosemiotics has the capability to be the silver lining and start slowly building again the talk with the community. Because most of you here gave amazing presentations about things, but it will reach the people it needs to reach, or will stay inside our circle, right? And it's not only about us, it's also about biologists, about our scientists. The physicists and mathematics, they already do it. Hawking, Michio Kaku, every one who's writing the popularizing books already is communicating with the public and they're pushing their agenda. But the biology and with it in biosemiotics, we are behind so much, and we need to push those actual laws behind the metaphors, because we could argue it's us. We got so lost into putting it right that we forgot to communicate it outside that something is already happening, and the people want it to happen. They start with the journalist. He's gonna start with the side with popularized publications like this, and it happened to more. And it's not enough that we have David Attenborough because he's focusing on something else. We need more people like this. And I think that biosemiotics has its place in this role as communicator between the common people and the science. So I promise you this was quick, and this is it. And I hope that it wasn't as confusing as it seemed in the beginning. So thank you for your attention. And
Thank you, Malcolm. So thank you very much. About new biology. So now there is also mathematical basis for that.
yeah.
And that now that is you didn't touch that at all because now during Turing's time, Nicholas Rashevsky worked with the same kind of models. So, but now further on, he lived longer than Turing. So, and he got a very fundamental change into understanding that we can understand life only through relations. So, and then he turned into a completely different, new view developed later by Robert Rosen. So, and now what is called there is that it is life is from now semiotic point of view, also emphasized by Rosen, not algorithm, but non-algorithmicity comes in. And that term, I could say, is now mathematical basis for this new biology, which is not just how to talk to people, but indeed a very deep difference from which is a kind of, now overcoming from mechanistic to truly non-mechanistic in mathematical sense already, say biology. That's non-algorithmic.
Yeah. Definitely.
You agree?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Having worked in commercial semiotics since, my second career, I believe, in university, cultural studies and literature. People like Philip Ball, I've read Philip Ball's Guide to Color.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant for explaining color to clients who wanted to be looking at which colors would work for their products and in what context, etc. And one of my reasons for wanting to learn more about biosemiotics is that the clients came to think of us, the semioticians, the culture experts, as the people who could think around any issue without having to talk to consumers, which is what other market researchers had to do. So we became the default reference point to explain anything. So I was explaining the microbiome to commercial clients in 2012, before it was big news, with a degree in Shakespeare, just 5 minutes ahead of them in terms of reading the popular science, which is when I started my endemic imposter syndrome went critical at that point, and I thought, I've got to start talking to these biosemiotics guys. However, there is, apart from Jesper Hoffmeyer's first book, I don't know anything else that speaks to people of biosemiotics.
No, nothing.
I became interested in commercializing the notion of Umwelt and keeping my eyes open for Umwelt. I saw it in lots of places, see the seabirds cry in fiction, popular science, but never in connection with biosemiotics, in connection with popular ethology or evolutionary psychology. So I think there is a challenge to make the discipline visible, to PR the discipline.
I think that would
proclaim to the world how exciting.
I think that would be great because I'm actually coming from a family. I'm the first one who attended college. I'm the first one who's attempting not to go insane during PhD. And my family, it's not exactly in agriculture, but we have land and we grow our own food and take care of our animals. And last autumn, I was kneeling next to my aunt picking up potatoes yesterday, and she was asking me, my aunt is 60 plus, she was asking me what I'm doing. And I tried to explain von Neumann and self-reproduction and things like this. And I found out that I have to reach out to biosemiotics, to some different approaches to try to explain to people. And I realized there is no connections, and the biosemiotics has the words, has the job already done, but we need to be more seen about it and give it to people because people are interested, but we are not there.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. But there's a dark irony that if there's one discipline that really tries to make bridges to others, it's this one.
Yeah.
But people ask me, it happened just before I came here. People said, "Why are you going to Rotterdam?" I said, "Well, it's a conference about biosemiotics." About what?
Yeah.
Then it happens so often when I talk to people, this sort of lead shutter comes down in their eyes.
Yeah.
Talk about something else. It could be me, but we have a real problem because I think we are liminal. I think we are at the, well, you know this as much as I do, and this isn't really a question, I'm afraid. I'm just saying I think we've got a problem in explaining our discipline to other people, a particular problem.
Yeah, there is like certain things I have, like for any people. I work in the tourism industry for 7 years. I was a touristic guide. I had to become someone who's clear because I was explaining history during 45 minutes of whole place. So I'm always saying that people need to be trained in this. Need to train how to explain things, how to explain things fairly, but not dump things down, and still give the accreditation to the discipline, be it history, be it biosemiotics, or if I'm teaching my students about anything, it's always give them the not the dumb version, but the easy version to come into it and save the grace of everything. It's hard work to do, but it needs to be worked on. It needs to be something that has to be trained, but it can be done.
So another an insight, because I spoke with a close friend of mine in England who is head of biology in school, and she works with sixth form kids, meaning they're going towards their exam. And we've been talking about biosemiotics quite extensively, and I would say, "Oh, do you agree with what I'm talking?" Yeah, yeah. Is it something that resonates? Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And at the end, I said, "Well, would you talk about it with your students?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, why? Because they're facing their exams and they cannot mess about with that.
Yeah.
They need to meet the grades in order to get to their university of choice." And so I said, "Yeah, well,
I can actually work on this problem too, at least partly. I'm part of the project that works in Czech to change the state exam we have to take in high school to get to the college, and we working with the administration of education and things like this to change how to approach not only the exam itself, but if we change the approaching of the exam, we can change what the kids are taught. And we are working mostly through physics and mathematics. So we are taking inspiration from France to show them the origin, the Marie Curie-Skłodowska diaries and things like this to make kids think about what they are doing, how it became a thing, make them critical reading things. So we are working on that in Czech Republic to change it, because if we can change the state exams and things like this, we can change what the teachers are teaching the kids. And we are preparing some books about it, some like a reader's guide to modern this and this. So it has to be changed on this level. And for this, you need the teams like we do in Prague, that you need people to go and talk with the ministry and other people to change it from up to down. That's the problem, at least in Czech Republic.
Right. That. Nora, then we will break.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it's really important that you also started with tutoring, because the question that he was asking was test. It seems to me we're in a revised version to play right now.
A little bit.
Why? And this is this is the metaphors that have been put in place by recent years, especially and so on, have us down an avenue of discourse that was very difficult to parse out. Why the directionality is so dangerous toward AI relationships, and etc. Why AI isn't like, which I mean, it would be fine if we weren't thinking that AI was going to be like life. If AI was, I don't want my toaster to be you know. So I think this, and this is sort of what I was getting to with my presentation also. What is the communication, and how do we make that communication so that it doesn't fall into the same grooves, but just get metabolized back into the same metaphor. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you for your comment.